Today we are going to create a positive and negative space splatter painting, and I'm just going to show you a few techniques that will help you out. First of all, if you want your paper to be any color besides white, then you need to use a pastel that doesn't have paper on it and rub it sideways across your paper. You could also use a crayon for that part. And then you will cut out whatever shape you want to use for your positive space. Here I chose a pumpkin. And then I'm using an almost dry flat brush to spread some paint out around my positive space. So my pumpkin is my positive space, and I am spreading around some black paint around the outside edge of that positive space, and I'm leaving that pumpkin taped down. Next, I'm going to use a toothbrush. When you splatter with a toothbrush, you should rake the bristles like this with your thumb going towards your body, and that way the flicks go down towards your paper. So I have my toothbrush aimed down towards my paper, and I'm flicking the bristles with my thumb. And you also want to make sure your paint is plenty wet. This will make little tiny splatters all around your paper, and yes, your thumb is going to get super dirty whenever you use a toothbrush with your thumb. The next thing I'm going to use is a paintbrush. Paintbrushes make bigger splats whenever you're flicking with them. You also want to make sure that your paintbrush is nice and wet for this part, and you're just going to tap the brush down towards your paper. You do not need to hit it very hard. If it does not splatter when you tap it, that means there's not enough water in that paint and you need to add some more water. It should splatter very easily, so you should not hit it very hard or it will splatter back towards your face. Next, I am just going to continue splattering around the paper using my toothbrush and my little paintbrush just to make some different kinds of splats. And then I'm using a big paintbrush. If you're using a big brush that holds a lot of water, I like to drag it across my finger, almost like I'm painting my finger, and flick it down towards my paper. Big brushes hold a lot more water, so you have to be kind of careful not to get too much water on there because you don't want it to be so wet that it drips underneath the pumpkin or whatever you make. So make sure you're being super careful while you're splattering. And when you're done splattering, you want to wash your hands and get them clean before you remove that positive space object that you made. So I'm very carefully peeling away my pumpkin that I made, and I am going to save it for later. I'm going to use that later. But here you can see my positive space is nice and clean, and my negative space or the background area is super splattery. And I'm just going to make a few more to give you some more ideas, because you can make whatever you want to make. For this one, I chose a gray pastel, and I am smearing it with a tissue just to get it blended in a little bit more. And I'm drawing out my shape on a scrap piece of paper. I am going to save that positive space. And then I made some little loops of tape and taped it down. This step just helps us see that positive space. If I do the whole background with splattering, it takes a long time to fill it in. So spreading that paint out around your positive space is just super helpful so that we can see it whenever you take it off. So again, I'm using all of my different splattering techniques and my different paintbrushes to make my negative space, and then clean your hands before you take off your positive space. And let's see if you can guess what this one is before I finish. So I cut out my positive space shape and put some loops of tape on the back. And for this one, I'm using a yellow pastel. It's important that it doesn't have paper on it so I can smear it. You could also use a crayon for this if you can't find that color pastel. I taped it down, and now I am spreading around my paint and splattering using all of my different kinds of paintbrushes. And if you only like one kind, that's fine. You can just stick with one kind of splattering. And when you finish that, you need to wait for your paper to dry. So this would probably be a next week activity. You can use pieces of paper, or you could draw some decorations and details for your positive space. So I made a little ghost, I made a little Pikachu, and I made my pumpkin into a jack-o'-lantern. And then I did save my positive space. This is an optional addition, but I did save my positive space, and I'm going to glue it to another paper and kind of make the opposite. So here my positive space is black and my negative space is orange instead of the other way around. And I'm going to do the same thing for all of them. And for the ghost, I decided to make the eyes and the mouth white. So it kind of looks like a see-through thing where my background and my eyes and mouth are the same color. And for my Pikachu, I actually did not want to put any details on this. I liked how this messy paper looked cut up, and so I just left it without any details. So today you can choose whatever you want to make, but think about keeping it kind of simple because you do have to cut out the shape, and most of your details will probably be made out of little pieces of paper next time.